My name is Adam Whitaker. I'm an intern assistant strength and conditioning coach at Weber International University, working primarily with women's soccer, and I assist with baseball and football. I have my master's degree in education with a concentration in kinesiology that I got from Auburn University in Montgomery. My bachelor's degree is in exercise science from Huntington College, where I played soccer as well there. I have my CSCS certification through the NSCA. So today I'm going to talk about what um, I did in preseason, in season, and then going into winter testing with my women's soccer team at Weber International. So coming into season or coming into preseason, I didn't know a lot about the team that I had. Um, Coming in brand new, you don't know too much. I was just going off of what the previous strength coach had on the girls. So what they've done previously in lifts, any kind of injury history, and any kind of personality and attitude, things that I need to look out for. So coming in with what the previous strength coach gave me, I knew this was a hard-working team, great attitude, great personality. I knew coming in that the head sport coach, she was great attitude as well, and so throughout the season, I gained a lot of buy-in from my girls as well as the head sport coach. We gained really good personal and professional relationship, as well as the ATC. Me and her get along great. We were constantly in contact, and we were constantly talking about things that we can do better for our girls if we see any problems. So we kind of kept, keep each other on each other's toes. So it's great. Injury history wise, the girls are very, I don't want to say injury prone, but there was a lot of issues last season. A lot of strains, sprains, that kind of issue there. I don't know if the girls coming in from summer were prepared, or maybe there was a problem in the program, or something like that. Maybe there wasn't enough days off or regen or anything like that. So I knew coming in that damage control was going to be really big in the preseason. Talking with the sport coach prior, I knew that she was wanting to do 2-a-days almost every day, and then with us lifting twice a week, some days it would be 3 days. So the girls are going to be doing a lot of activity. So I knew that damage control is going to be really big. Regen days, making sure I'm always monitoring the girls, making sure I know where they're at physically and mentally, just so I can stay in contact with the head sport coach, just let her know, if we do need days off and things like that. So I'm going to do a look at our brief outline of our goals coming into the season. Okay, so main in-season goals, of course, are reducing injury, damage control, taking any kind of preventative measures that we need, of course, increasing mobility and flexibility. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the FMS that I had the girls do coming in preseason. So I wrote this down after the testing, so I knew increasing mobility and flexibility was going to be really big. Of course, with the problems that we had or they had last season. Of course, maintaining or even increasing strength throughout the season if we can. Maintaining is going to be big, just so they don't lose too much from the summer. And correct any problem areas that we see, physically or mentally. So keeping them strong mentally and pushing through the season, because from experience, when I played, season can be long, a lot of traveling, especially with homework and tests and finals, things like that. So just making sure they're always staying fresh mentally. Another big thing that we wanted to do was increase stability in the core. There was a moderately poor balance in the FMS testing, and a lot of rounding at the trunk during our FMS testing as well. So the types of training that I want to do are going to be a 2-day split, Tuesday and Thursday mornings. We got them set up was at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. warm up, and our list was from 6 to 7. So gave enough time to, after our lift, get any kind of food that they needed, and then get to the field right after. So we started training at 9 from 9 to 10:30, and then the afternoon from 3 to 4:30. So days are pretty long, especially for the girls. These are total body both days. I stuck with a linear periodization scheme. So trying to, even though we're maintaining through the season, we're constantly wanting to progress as well. So the way I set up my days were I have my main power movement, or the base of my main power movement that I want to get into later, whether it be clean or snatch or jerk. And then I paired that with a mobility and stability. So I think it gives the girls a break from the actual movement, their rest period, but at the same time, they're getting some kind of work in. And then after that, I got into a core lift, same thing with mobility, stability, for the same reasons. Then we got a lower body and upper body push, and I paired that with some kind of mobility, and then an upper body and lower body pull, push-pull combo. And then I still, try to get that paired up with some kind of mobility. And each of these mobility and stability type works, they reflected what we were doing with that lift that we were supersetting them with. And at the end of the day, we did core, and I try to keep it balanced as possible. So we did a lot of carries, some power presses, things like that. So just a lot of trunk stability type work. Not too much turning and twisting. Which now that I look back on it, I wish we did a little bit more turning and twisting, and we'll probably get more into that to the spring. All right, progression in season. Kept it as a GPP, general preparatory phase. We just want to make sure we're building a solid base, maintaining key strength, and keeping movement efficiency. Progression in the season would just kind of be dependent on the team's progress and or needs that I see that they are susceptible to. And looking back, the girls, coming in over the summer, they did really, really well coming in. The training age was really high, so they picked up a lot of things. There was not a lot of, especially when we did any kind of like hip hinging, a lot of dissociation with in that movement. So they did really well. They understood the movements, and the girls that came in late in preseason, they picked up on it really quickly. So I was very blessed to have that. So we weren't kind of lagging there in preseason, a lot of things. So, and the progressions that we did through in season were pretty rapid, pretty quickly, just because they picked up on it so quickly. So again, I was very excited with that. So our first day, Tuesday, total body. We go through a dynamic warm up. A lot of range of motion. And since it's so early, we really try to turn on the CNS and just wake them up, get some blood flowing. So after that, we get into any kind of prehab type movements we want to do to get ready for the lifts that day. A lot of first days are doing RDLs. Eventually, we want to get into cleans. So we want to make sure that, get into the A's, Y's, T's, A's, L's, really get that posterior chain going in the upper back area. TKEs, get those ready for squats, really start firing that VMO. And then we did a lot of hurdle work just for range of motion. Coming from the FMS, did a lot of the range of motion on girls, especially in the hips, was very low. So we want to do a lot of hurdle work. So moving into our actual exercises, so our power movement, we backed it down to RDLs. Again, just because I didn't know where these girls were at coming in, a lot of freshmen, probably never done cleans before. A lot of the returners had, but I didn't have a lot of time to break, each class up. So returners didn't have their own program, and freshmen didn't have their own program. I didn't have enough time, so we just threw them straight into RDLs. We did alternated leg lowers for stability. We did a self-hip mobility for mobility, kind of like a figure 4 on the ground, or a pigeon pose, or however you want to term it. Then we got into our core lift, which is a front squat. Paired that with depth drops, and that was kind of mostly just for our stability, and as well as receiving the body weight and making sure that they can control it. Then we got into three-way ankle mobility, and there's the mobility movement. With that, that was just kind of making sure that we didn't really have a lot of ankle injuries coming into the season, and I kind of wish we did a little bit more, just because the first few weeks we did have a major ankle injury, and I'll get into that more as we progress. And then we got into a hip dominant. We did a hip hinge, prone, an upper pull, did TRX rows. And then we did a mobility, so we did T-spine rotations there. Just kind of help with trunk range of motion. And then we did a knee dominant, so we step up to A position hold, upper body push, was a dumbbell alternated bench, and we did some shoulder stability work. We did mini band wall slides, just to kind of keep that stability in the shoulder, scapular area really good. And it's good for, I think it's good for the girls to kind of have that good shoulder mobility, even though they're, it's such a lower body dominant sport. But it helps with maintaining stability on falls and things like that. I had a pretty bad shoulder injury in college, and coming down, landing on my shoulder, dislocate or subluxed it, and it took me out for about a week and a half. So, and also I did this for the goalkeepers, making sure their shoulders staying nice and strong. Thursday, total body again, same dynamic warm up, same kind of thing. Our prehab, we went to more rotator cuff work because we were doing overhead pushing movements. We did internal, external rotation, Cupid presses. Then we did a pillar series, just to get core warmed up for our deadlifts. And then we did low hurdle work. So each hurdle day we do high lows, or we just do low hurdle work, just for just for hip mobility. So we got into a dumbbell push press paired with shoulder dislocates. So that was just kind of keeping mobility in the shoulders there. I think the dumbbell push press is already good stability work, keeping the core tight as you press the dumbbells overhead. Made sure we keep the elbows in tight to the body, pushing the head through. Core lift, we did a hex bar deadlift. I chose hex bar just because previously there was a girl on the team who was doing conventional deadlift, and she had a lot of had a spinal injury where she blew some discs out, and some herniations, things like that. So I just wanted to get into, again, and another good reason was I didn't know where these girls were at, and I didn't know how well they'd react to a deadlift or how good their form was. So we just stuck with a hex bar, a little bit safer. Paired that with a kettlebell or dumbbell upside down hold, kneeling position, so that's just good for shoulder stability, trunk stability, not bending over, things like that, staying nice and tall. And then we did a banded hip distraction for the mobility work. Then we did a knee dominant lateral squat. We did upper body pull. We did pull up hold, so we just hold it at the top, hold pull up position, held there for 10 to 15 seconds. Mobility, we did physio ball lat stretches. Then moved on to hip dominant. Did Nordic leans, upper body push, push-ups with a plus at the top, and then mobility, band and hip flexor stretch. Then core, we just did team dead bug work. A lot of the core stuff that we do is kind of like a final burner, but we get it done pretty quickly, and then gets their core in that they need for the day. So again, let's backing up. We did FMS testing throughout the preseason, and I'll pull that up for us here. All right, so prior to season, this is my FMS testing that we talked about before the outline of the season. Let me zoom in here for us. So I did 5 different tests, 4 of which came from the actual FMS. 1 I added, which is the Thomas test. I just wanted to look at hip flexor flexibility as well in the quads. A lot of the past injury report, they had a lot of quad problems last year, so I wanted to look at us and see where we're at now prior to the end of the year, last year. So you can see I averaged up all the scores here for each test on a numbering scale from 1 to 3, 3 being the best, 1 being the worst, 0 being absolutely awful. And overhead squat and our Thomas test were the 2 worst scores. So I knew that our quadricep and our hip flexor mobility hadn't gotten too much better from what they did last year. It may have improved, but it still wasn't, a better score than what we had here. Overhead squat, looked at hip mobility. A lot of the girls just couldn't get depth. Overhead mobility was kind of bad. A lot of forward leaning, things like that. So I made sure when we got into our actual warm up or got to our actual lifts, I made sure we we really hit those areas. Hurdle steps, not too much better, but most of that I think was just trunk stability and ability of to move the hip over the hurdle. So this is what we did pre-season, and then I averaged up each girl's individual score as well. So I did their pre-average, and then I did a sum of scores as well, so a pre-sum. And I try to give an A standard as 24 or above, so 90% or above. 27 being the best, 24 being an A. As you can see here, no girl. There's some that are close, but no girl is in that 90th percentile. So throughout the season, doing the things that we did with the girls, we did like I said, we did a lot of stability, mobility work throughout the season. This is my template I used here. Let's see. Let's go to week 1. So again, a lot of stuff was either body weight, and the way I tracked their weights was I just had them right in the load that they used, and then the week next, the second week, I would take that load and put it in here for them, just with a light gray. Just so they still see what weight they used from the prior week, but then could write over it for this week. And then I would actually put that into our monitoring system here. So I count the reps, monitor the reps, monitor the average load on total load volume, and we monitor that throughout the week. I try to watch that as closely as possible to make sure and try to pair that up with the RPEs that we had. I noticed as we got more into the 30,000 total load volume, the RPEs would really spike. So I tried not to get our total load volume too much higher than 30,000 because I didn't want our RPEs to get higher than a 6. Just so they're still working, but at the same time they're not overloading the system. So throughout the season, we did 3 weeks, and then we had a deload. So I just on our deload, I cut everything in half. And it's funny because when I was doing this in our, let's see if I can move over to our annual plan. All right. So this is one of our girls here. I tracked, you can tell how I would track the workload here. And as you can see, it didn't really line up properly, but as the total volume would increase, of course, total volume here would increase, as well as the load, and then of course with our weekly RPE as well. So this should line up a little bit better here. So what's really funny is I would have these 3 weeks here of progression, then my 4th week I wanted a deload. Well, on the 4th week, on our deload, what I would do with our deload on our 4th week was I cut the reps in half, but what I did was I kept the weight that they used the week prior, which is the heaviest weight they had gotten to, and I kind of kept it really high, the CNS really high, but I kept the volume very low, so it just wasn't overloading the system too much. But so when I did that on our 4th week here, it almost acted as a overreaching. So they actually spiked. And then when I introduced a new movement, so when I went from RDLs to uh, clean shrugs, it actually dropped. And then the introduction of our new movement was our actually our deload. So we changed up a lot of things going into it. I think and then I actually went from front squat to back squat, so their weights dropped there as well. So everything kind of dropped down, introducing a new movement. So it was kind of funny to see how that worked. And then this was our first game, and then we hit back into the weight, and you see we actually went higher and higher, back down, and then this is toward the end of the season here, where we didn't have a lot of time in the weight room, and so a lot of times when we did get into there, it was just muscle activation, things like that, just to make sure the CNS didn't actually lie dormant throughout the time of we had so many games and so much traveling. So you can see really good super compensation here. And then we had a week where we actually could get in the weight room. We hadn't been in the weight room for about 2 weeks, and I didn't want to start off the back where we were here. So I took out their intensities and we kind of backed it down a little bit. So just to kind of give them a little bit of a break, but still want to get into the weight room. So towards the end of the season, throughout the season, let's talk about injuries. We didn't have a lot of injuries throughout the season. Our main major injury was a sprained ankle at the very beginning of the season. Let's see if I can find it here. Had a sprained ankle at the very beginning of the season, so back in August. And she was out for a pretty good period of time, so 8 days. She returned to play, but again wasn't 100% until the date closed here. So, so coming through this, I talked with my ATC at the time and seeing what we could actually do to kind of get rid of this. So we've talked about a lot of ankle strengthening stuff that we did in a dynamic warm-up, and that really seemed to help the problem. After her ankle injury, we had a few minor twists here, but nothing major. They just kind of noticed they started twisting their ankles, or rolling them. Excuse me. So we really started adding in a lot of ankle strengthening, like heel walks, toe walks, ankle flips, that kind of thing, into the dynamic warm up. And throughout the season, I don't want to say I eradicated any kind of injury, but we saw a major reduction in any kind of ankle problems. So again, other major injuries that we had were we had two concussions. One was three concussions. Two of them was our defenders. One of them was our goalkeeper. And a lot of those were just from knocks from the ball. The one we had with our goalkeeper, she actually had a knee to the forehead, and it kind of knocked her pretty good. So throughout the season, again, like I said, we had some minor strains. A day here, hamstring 2 days. We had a lot of some contusions that they were left out a couple days, but this one here with our goalkeeper, she actually collided with one of our strikers. Pretty bad low back contusion. Around her hip. It wasn't actually low back or spinal or anything, that just hip, low back. She was out for a couple days. And then, we had another hamstring here. So most of them were either a hamstring or a groin. And no quadriceps. So we kind of got rid of that from the season prior. So I actually started looking into these hamstring stuff, and I think it's a groin here, and no, excuse me, that's not a groin. Groin here, and let's see, hamstring. I started looking into this. A lot of times they had these is right around their start of their menstrual cycle. So I did some research on this and kind of figured out, when strains or injuries occur during the menstrual cycle, usually at the very beginning and very end. So I'm going to start using that more into season in the spring. So again, very low injury rate this season. Of course, the sport coach is very happy. We kept a lot of girls very healthy. And then for some reason or another, we got away from doing a lot of the ankle work. I don't know why. I just didn't see a big. The girls were looking really good with their ankles. We just kind of got away from it. Should have stayed with it because right at the end of the season, our stud striker and one of our stud center midfielders, this one got tackled, sprained her ankle pretty good. It lasted throughout the season, but he says return to play and date closed. I left blank just because coach kept her in, ATC kept her in. She seemed to do fine on it, but make sure she had a lot of therapy throughout the rest of the season. This was very end of the season, so she did, I think, second to last game, and then kept playing, I think, 2 more games. And then our midfielder here, she actually stepped in a pothole at practice, and really bad sprain there again. No date, open or close. She just kind of kept playing throughout the season. So at the end of the day, very low injury rate. So if we go back to our testing. So let me zoom in again. So we'll scroll over. So again, this was postseason that we saw here, or excuse me, preseason. Now this is postseason. Okay, so you can see these greens here are the improvements, biggest improvements. So of course we had a 2 and a 2 here at the beginning of the season. Now we're up 2.4, almost 2.5, almost to a 3 now on the Thomas test. And then our hurdle step actually increased as well to almost a 3. So big improvement in movement efficiency there. And move this over. So you can see, again, post average for these. Big improvements. And then I did the sums here again. Now you can see almost all these girls are in the A standard, where no girl was in the A standard prior. So this is a big correlation between our low injury rate and the season. I like to think so. Low injury rate, maybe the girls came in a little more fit, a little more stronger than they did last season. But if we had any wins, in the weight room, they may have not gotten any stronger throughout the season. But I think the biggest thing that we did this season was just huge reduction in injury from last season, and their movement efficiency really went up. So I was really excited to see that at the end of the season. We're the only team to make it postseason in the fall, which is really great. I was very proud of the girls, what they did. They worked really hard getting into it. We lost the first round, heartbreaker, but at the end of the day, on my side of things, I considered it a season to win with something like this. So again, very happy with the outcomes of this season. I think it has to do with a lot of the programming that I did with the girls. Combine the stability, mobility with them, and also using that information that I got from the FMS and seeing what the girls needed in season and putting that into the program. So again, very, very excited. So the girls have been over winter break. I gave them a winter break program. When we come back from winter, we're going to be retesting FMS, going to retest their maxes, and going to be moving forward into the summer. So that was my in-season program, and thank you for your time.